No place on Earth quite like Dubai, the hub of futuristic architecture and revolutionary technology, and a playground for creating the tallest, most luxurious skyscrapers that we've ever seen. The ultra-modern metropolis already has an endless list of world-renowned landmarks. But there's a group of exceedingly impressive projects currently in production. A trip to Dubai is like stepping into the future, and we're about to show you exactly why. It's not nicknamed the City of Gold for no reason. Aside from literally being able to withdraw bricks of gold from ATMs, Dubai is one of the wealthiest cities on Earth, and they sure know how to put their money to good use. Soaring above the cloud line is the undisputed icon of the city, the world's tallest skyscraper, the Burj Khalifa, with 163 floors ascending a startling 828 meters, or 2,716 feet. This colossal structure is easily the tallest building ever made. It's held that title since opening on January 9, 2010. That's not its only claim to fame, though. It also has the elevator with the longest travel distance, the most stories of any building, the highest occupied floor in the world, and the highest outdoor observation deck. Take a look at it next to the Shanghai Tower, which at 2,073 feet is the second tallest building standing today, the Empire State Building, which comes in at 1,554 feet, and the London Eye at 443 feet. Side by side, it's easy to understand how this mammoth of a project cost the city of Dubai a whopping $1.5 billion. Just because the Burj Khalifa is the current tallest building, that doesn't mean that it will be forever. In fact, Saudi Arabia has already got a mega project of its own ready to overtake it. Soon to eclipse the Burj Khalifa is the Jeddah Tower, which is due to open in 2020 and will scrape the sky at exactly 1 kilometer above the ground. That's 3,280 feet. Dubai saw what Saudi Arabia had in store and, not wanting to fall to second place, put together plans of yet another megastructure that would trump it. With a projected cost of around 3.67 billion AED, close to $1 billion US, the Dubai Creek Tower will soon break all kinds of records. How tall are we talking exactly? Well, that's yet to be disclosed. At the moment, the development company Emaar Properties is keeping the exact height of the tower under wraps. That said, it's estimated to reach around 1,300 meters, while styled after an Arabic minaret and resembling a blossoming lily flower. Construction on the eccentric monolith began back in October of 2016 and is scheduled to be finished at some stage in 2020.
Hello, Mr. Peter. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, sir.
Okay, now the next question. Can you hear any sound around me?
Not that I can.
Huh?
I can't pick any sound.
Okay, you can't speak any sound around me.
No background sound.
Okay, so it's only me you're hearing.
Yes, please.
Good, God be praised. Okay, fantastic. So we can resume schedule now. I just wanted you to find out, because it's so loud here, because it's just almost in front of my house that they're playing all those loud party music. I want to be sure that we don't have an issue.
We're good, sir.
I'm going off now, and then
right,
we can start where the time comes.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Opening to the public in 2021. It's touted to have up to 10 viewing platforms, some of which will rotate, along with luxury residences, offices, restaurants, and sky gardens inspired by the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. The builders aren't just slapping it in the middle of downtown, though. They're actually creating an entirely new neighborhood called Dubai Creek Harbor, of which the tower will be the illustrious centerpiece. The area is promoted to being able to accommodate close to 470,000 people when finished. Have you ever thought that skyscrapers are just a tad too boring, too repetitive? Well, the futuristic minds of Dubai have one heck of a mega project in store to change that. Get ready, because in 2020 we will see the world's first 80-story, 420-meter-tall dynamic tower. In other words, it's a fully rotating skyscraper. And when all is said and done, it's set to cost just over $1.2 billion US. Construction hasn't been easy, though. It's been a long journey for the Dynamic Tower Hotel, also known as the Da Vinci Tower, with planning starting way back in 2008. The highlight of this new-aged building is the rotating floors, which take about 90 minutes to complete a 360-degree circle. You'll need between $4 million and $40 million to buy a floor or an apartment when they go to sale, depending on how high in the building they sit. Best of all, residents will be able to control the rotation speed and direction of their individual luxury apartment. So if you want to catch the sunrise, just rotate your apartment 90 degrees to the left. Or feel like making your acrophobic guests dizzy? Just turn the speed up to max. Aside from this never-before-seen feature, the tower will be the world's first prefabricated skyscraper. In other words, every individual rotating piece or every floor can be built in a factory and then shipped to the construction site to be attached to the central cylinder. This means that construction can be up to 30% quicker than regular skyscrapers. Could this be the future of architecture and construction? In case you haven't noticed, Dubai clearly has a love for any and all things futuristic. That's why they've gone ahead and developed another amazing mega project, the so-called Museum of the Future. With a projected cost of 499 million AED, or about 109 million USD, the innovative Dubai landmark will be one of the most expensive of its kind ever made. On the outside, it will resemble the shape of an eye, which is supposed to relate to ideas of perception and knowledge. On the inside, it will show off the most impressive feats of human creativity and technology, with more robots on hand than we'd ever need. The museum will showcase three main themes. 1, the relationship between robots and humans. 2, how robots and AI can improve human capabilities. And 3, how AI will affect how humans make decisions in the future. Like many other of the spectacular projects mentioned today, the Museum of the Future is scheduled to be completed in time for the Dubai 2020 Expo in October. Cities are known to take expos very seriously, having built some of the most iconic landmarks on Earth in preparation for their own. The Eiffel Tower in Paris, the Space Needle in Seattle, and the Atomium in Brussels, to name a few. Next up, we've got one of Dubai's most famous long-standing icons, the Burj Al Arab, better known unofficially as the world's first 7-star hotel. As one of the city's first mega projects, the Burj Al Arab was completed over 2 decades ago, in 1999. Despite that, however, it still remains a symbol of ultimate luxury. The unique building sits on its very own man-made island and is shaped like a sail. At the time, it cost around $1 billion to construct, largely due to the immense work needed to secure foundations in the sand below. If you feel like renting out one of the 202 rooms on offer, you'll need to fork out at least $2,000 a night. And that's just for the cheap rooms. Pfft, chump change, right? Then why not stay in the outrageously lavish royal suite? As a room truly fit for a king, it'll set you back a whopping 24 grand per night. At least you'll get to play on one of the provided 24-karat gold iPads. We've heard of the Hyperloop before, right? If you haven't, it's essentially an ultra-high-speed train capable of connecting Dubai and Abu Dhabi in 12 minutes. That's close to 7 times faster than highway driving. Fast train, big deal, we've seen it before. But wait till you hear what Dubai has in store next for transport. Dubai to Abu Dhabi is one thing, but how about Dubai to India? In just 2 hours, the proposed underwater train could connect the City of Gold to Mumbai via Fujairah, joining two nations which are close to 2,000 kilometers apart, about 1,200 miles in just 2 hours. But how would it all work? Surely you can't build a tunnel that long. According to a video released by the UAE's National Advisor Bureau Limited, the underwater journey would be
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's event. Hello, are we all together? Can you all hear me, please? Hello? Hello, Peter?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I'd like to welcome everyone right now here present. I think we have just the faculty right now and members of the PLLI to this course, Spark, which is a maiden course for this year, hosted by the PLLI. As students get into the chat room, we'll begin. I think we should give them, being a first, I think we should give 5 minutes of grace time before we continue. Is that okay? Mr. Peter,
All right. Yes, please.
5 more minutes of grace.
All right. Sir.
Yes. Okay.
Stories in height, this complex includes office space, hotels and parking. Each building is connected with snake-like bridges with air conditioning and moving floors. Number 2. Museum of the Future. The 9-story building is shaped like an eye that represents our vision of the future, with an auditorium, food and beverage deck, and 6 exhibition floors showing anything from climate change innovation, smart city inventions, and AI. It may sound like an oxymoron, but the Museum of the Future is a thing of the present. Number 3. Burj Khalifa. 828 meters tall and with 163 floors, it's the world's tallest skyscraper. It also has the elevator with the longest travel distance, the most floors, the highest outdoor observation deck, and the highest occupied floor. Number 4. The Hyperloop. Dubai proposes to construct a high-speed train link under the Arabic Sea to Mumbai, a total difference of 1,862 kilometers away. The train will cover this distance in 2 hours. That's approximately 580 miles an hour. The trains will travel in tunnels just under the surface of the sea, suspended from a network of floating rigs. So now we can get seasick on a train. Number 5. Burj Al Arab. The world's first 7-star hotel, this sail-like building sits on its own man-made island. It has 202 rooms, ranging in price from $2,000 to $24,000 a night. Number 6. Dynamic Tower. 420 meters tall with 80 stories, all formed around a central column which allows each floor to rotate independently of the others. Occupants will be able to choose the speed and direction of rotation, and an entire 360-degree rotation will take 90 minutes. Don't like the view from your hotel room? Change it! Number 7. Dubai Creek Tower. Currently under construction, the Dubai Creek Tower's estimated height is 1,300 meters. The building will include 10 viewing platforms, some of which will rotate, offices, residences, restaurants and sky gardens inspired by the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. Number 8. Man-made islands. Whether it's the palm trees, the world map, or the newly built Seahorse Island, maybe one of the most iconic things in Dubai are its man-made islands. These icons don't come cheap though. The palm tree islands alone cost over $12 billion to make. Number 9. Dubai Frame. In order to showcase everything we've mentioned, Dubai built the Dubai Frame. Resembling a picture frame, this 150-meter tall building is designed so that whilst looking through one side, you can see modern-day Dubai, while from the other side, the older, more traditional Dubai can be seen. Dubai's elaborate way of not losing track of its roots. Would you like to visit Dubai? Let us know in the comments.
Hello, everyone. Welcome again. I'm sure we can all hear me now, right? Yes. So welcome to today's seminar. This is going to be, hello? Yes, we can all hear me, yes. This is going to be the PLLI Web Series 3. And I would like to welcome our lead speaker. My name is Shankfula. I'll be your moderator for today, helping to moderate affairs as we gather questions and insights also from participants, and also help to facilitate and ensure that we conclude in a timeless fashion. I'd welcome you. I want to see Temitope welcome, and I'd like to welcome Femi Official and every other person due present. So now we have as a keynote speaker for today, Mrs. Toyin F. Sani. Mrs. Toyin F. Sani is founder and CEO at the Emerging Africa Group, which is focused on investing in sectors with catalytic impact on growth and development, such as roads and power infrastructure investment, banking and asset management, microfinance banking, information communication technology, and capacity building. Her board roles include chairman, Emerging Layer 3 Nigeria, non-executive director, Transcorp PLC, member National Advisory Board on Impact Investment, and chair of its wholesale Impact Investment Committee. Toyin has over 35 years of experience, and her prior roles include Group Chief Executive Officer, United Capital PLC, CEO, UBA Trustees, and UBA Global Investor Services, CEO, President, Association of Investment Advisors, President, Investment Advisors and Portfolio Management, and President, Association of Corporate Trustees, amongst others. Toyin is an alumnus of the Lagos Business School CEO program and holds a master's degree from the University of Lagos and professional qualifications as a fellow, Chartered Institute of Stockbrokers, fellow, Chartered Institute of Secretaries and Administrators, and member, Chartered Institute of Securities and Investments, United Kingdom. Toyin has won numerous awards such as the AABLA 2017, Pearl CEO 2017, and AIFA Best Woman Leader in Africa for 2022, amongst others. This point in time, we welcome to the podium Toyin Sani as she takes us on this discourse on our webinar series 3. Before we applaud her and welcome up to the podium, Peter, it would be nice to find out, do we know how much how the attendance has grown? Can we comment now? Should we, because I am also worried about late entrants missing out on the benefit of her key insights. Should we pause, start up by another 5 minutes, or can we commence immediately?
I think we can go ahead. I mean, because questions are going to be coming in, so we can always have some bit of recap so that we can also maximize our time. So when questions that has come before get repeated, we might just beg her to serve as a recap.
Okay, then in that case, welcome to the podium, ma'am. Mrs. Toyin Sani, we welcome you and we celebrate you, ma'am. Welcome to the podium, ma'am.
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you can hear me.
Loud and clear,
we can.
Yeah.
Okay, let me put my video on. Apologies, as Sunday is also a very busy day for me, being a pastor. I just want to put my video on, just making sure that you will have a good view. Is this good enough for everybody?
Yes, it is, ma'am.
Okay, I know I'm supposed to use the backdrop that was given to me, but as I explained, my device does not always cooperate with the backdrop. I still don't know why. It's something that I would figure out later. Okay, so I want to thank the PLI organization for the opportunity to be your speaker for today. I especially want to thank Peter for his diligent follow-up. I want to apologize to anybody who had joined or was expecting to join last Sunday, because this had to be moved a week forward at my instance. And I'm just very hopeful that notwithstanding those glitches, that we will have a great conversation today. So once again, good evening, everyone, and welcome to this session, this webinar session. I am to speak about debt, and please, apologies, I'm still having challenges, just keep in mind.
It's okay, ma'am.
Yeah, just give me a minute. And let me just get my my major device charging so that I can join on my laptop instead of the phone. And I think it will improve the quality of reception. Please just give me a couple of minutes.
All right.
Visitors who peer from one side can see the futuristic metropolis, while those who stand on the other can peek out at the older, more traditional neighborhoods. It's one of Dubai's more subtle mega projects, but it's amazing nonetheless. Where does all this money come from? Some of it stems from the ultra-rich Dubai royal family. Why not see how they spend their billions? Or if you haven't quenched your thirst for new technology, check out 15 weird inventions that made people extremely rich. That's all for this one. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah.
So she didn't
Bad
marry.
debt. Bad debt, not good debt.
Yeah. Well, it was just a learning experience.
It was a great learning experience, and we paid it all back.
Yeah.
A lot of people are saying, I think that's really ridiculous because a credit card is not the problem. In fact, I love my credit cards. You know, to develop yourself to be, as the Army says, to be all you can be.
I have no idea what it feels like to pay off your investors when you screw up. So I was cringe when I hear, oh, we just crowdfunded that. I'm going, well, how are you going to pay them back?
That's the key. That's the key.
And good debt is debt that somebody else pays for you. But the reason getting rid of bad debt was so important for us in our starting our lives together was that it's easier to get good debt, i.e. loans and things like that on apartment houses and commercial buildings and rental property if you have no bad debt. And so we had no blemishes by the time we came through this process. We never stopped investing, by the way, but we did pay off the bad debt and get into good debt. So good debt is very simply debt that makes you rich and somebody else pays off for you, i.e. your tenants. And bad debt is debt that makes you poorer every month and you have to pay for. So we'll start with steps of getting out of debt. So step number one is you got to tell yourself the truth. And I think that's one of the hardest things I had to do because, you know, Kim had never met a financial disaster like me before. She couldn't believe anybody could be driving a Mercedes and living in a nice hotel right on the shores of Diamond Head and be flat broke, but also deeply in debt. And I kept pretending I was rich, and that was, you know, I was faking it till I make it, and, you know, I was praying to God and Jesus and Buddha and hoping that money would come by and pretending I had no debt, and I was looking good and, you know, eating in the best restaurants and flaunting the cash, but I was flat broke. You can fake your girlfriends, but you can't fake your wife. And so the first thing I had to do with Kim was sit down and eventually tell her the truth that I wasn't as rich as I looked.
Well, it's true. You've got to tell yourself the truth, because if you have a goal of where you want to go, you're not going to be able to get there if you don't know where you are. Step number two is you've got to stop accumulating the bad debt.
Yes, and what that meant is sometimes you might have to make a little bit of sacrifice. And when Kim and I moved from Hawaii to California and we went homeless right away, and we were living in the garage basement apartment, there was sometimes I had to run up, we had no money, and so Kim had like $2 to get through Friday, Saturday, and Sunday till I came home Sunday night and hopefully got paid for what I was doing.
Number three is make a list of all, and the key word is all, the debt that you owe.
And she's still giving me a dirty look when she says the word all, because
Hello, once again, apologies for the break. And I want to thank everybody for patiently waiting for me. May I confirm that you can all still hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And hopefully the break allowed us to have one or two more people join the webinar. So once again, it's a real pleasure to be here and to take this conversation and to say that I am going to be focusing significantly on answering the questions that have been sent and also questions that we will be asked in the course of this webinar. But I will start with some introductory remarks and statements. So I understand that those who are on this call today are hoping to get an understanding on the use of debt to run our businesses, whether or not debt is good and to what extent and under what conditions is it recommended or advisable for a business to deploy debt. So participants' expectations at this webinar, as I have been told, will be to know how to get out of debt, to gain insights on leveraging debt for business growth, to know the right attitude towards loans, and how to leverage debt for scaling their businesses. Let me start by saying that I like to say that cash is the lifeblood of any business, and that to the same extent that the human body requires blood to keep flowing for the person to stay alive, it's the same way that all businesses need a certain measure of liquidity to stay afloat and to stay alive. Now, how much debt or how much funding a business needs will depend on so many things: the industry in which you are playing, the regulatory requirements for that sector in the industry, if there are any, the actual capital requirements for the business, both in terms of CapEx and also OpEx. So CapEx being capital expenditure, the long-term investments that you need to make for your business, and OpEx meaning operating expenses, which are the day-to-day expenses such as salaries, and such as office expenses and the kind of expenses that you need to keep a business running, such as marketing expenses, for example, advertisements, and the actual cost of servicing the needs of your clients. Now, businesses are typically funded by either equity or debt, or a combination of both. Now, some people will ask and say, which is better, equity or debt? And I like to say that there is nothing like which is better. It really depends on what your objectives are and what your concerns are. Obviously, equity is, by reason of its nature, is long-term capital, because anybody who is an equity partner in your business is a stakeholder in your business, a long-term stakeholder in your business, and they have chosen to provide what we call risk capital, because an equity investor is sharing risk with you. And so ultimately, if the business makes a profit, they share the profit with you. If the business makes a loss, they share the loss with you as well. So whilst it's always stated that in the long term, equity is more expensive, because obviously you are in business hoping to make profits, and who shares, ideally, the largest share of the business, of the returns of the business, will go to the equity partners. But whilst it is perceived that therefore equity is more expensive than debt, equity is, from a short-term perspective, short to medium-term perspective, equity is much easier to manage than debt. Debt, on the other hand, means that you have a commitment to make periodic payments to your creditor in terms of interest payments, and of course also a commitment to repay the principal, either in a lump sum or bullet, as we call it, at the end of the tenor of the debt, or to pay over time. So it is these obligations to pay back principal and interest that sometimes make debt a little bit more challenging for business owners than equity. But ultimately, if things are as they should be, debt is supposed to be cheaper than equity. Now, should a business have, how should a business be funded? And is it recommended for every business to take in debt? And how I will answer that is that the first requirement in terms of capital for a business is equity. And the owners of the business must have a reasonable stake in the future outcome of the business. So in investment banking, which is where I am, if somebody comes to me and says they would like to raise debt for a project, one of the first questions I'm going to ask them is, how much skin do you have in this project? So how much of the capital costs and the OPEX of involved in running this business is going to come from owner's equity? How much? Because if you fund your business purely from a loan that you have raised from me, it means that if the business is not doing well, you can walk away and you don't need to worry because you don't have any skin in the game. It's really my headache at the end of the day. So typically I would ask you, on a normal day, I would be looking for you having a stake of about 30%. And in a worst case scenario, I will be looking for a minimum of 15% equity stake in anything that you're doing. So obviously a business should be funded first and primarily by owner's equity, because number one is that owner's equity is funding that is stable. It's funding that is long-term. It's funding that doesn't need to be repaid back doesn't need to be repaid back. If it's going to be paid, because somebody is selling, that's a different thing. But it does not have, there's no requirement to pay back. And in addition, is that there is also no guarantee of any, return, so to speak. There's no guarantee of return. There's no obligation to pay interests as to the cost of the funding. When the business makes a profit, then you share profit. And if the business makes a loss, everybody shares the loss as well. And that's why every business needs to have, this foundation, which is the equity that based on which the business has been set up. But then we now look at debt. And debt is exactly that, which is a financial facility that you have obtained from typically a financial institution or investors in your business that usually has a specific tenor and also has a price. The price is either a fixed interest rate or it's a floating interest rate indexed against some other fixed some other fixed parameter. So you can say, for example, you are taking a facility at NIBOR plus 300 basis points. So bottom line is that there is a reference point and there is an expected cost for this funding, and there's usually a tenor or a term for the funding as well. And of course, the fund must be paid back at the end of that tenor, unless by consent of the parties, it is then extended or rolled over. So those are key elements of a debt that differentiate it from equity. And so the next question would be, when should a business contemplate taking on debt, and what kind of debt should a business be looking at? So I think that a business should look at taking on debt when it has an opportunity to expand the business, to scale up its operations, to make an advantageous asset acquisition, which expansion opportunity is expected to generate a return that is significantly above the cost of servicing the debt, and which opportunity will also generate sufficient liquidity to pay back the debt within the agreed term or tenor. So when there is such an opportunity, and you have done the analysis that shows that you will, generate revenues from this acquisition or from this expansion, such that those revenues will be sufficient to pay back the loan and to pay interest on the loan and still leave a surplus for the business, then taking on debt would be justifiable. Now, if you are also in an industry that is rapidly growing, if you are in a fast-paced industry, if you are in an industry where there is steep competition, and you realize that you are not even able to gain or to preserve your market share unless you rapidly scale up, it will be an indication that you should consider taking on debt as well. So, I mean, in a perfect world, all of us would like not to borrow. In a perfect world, all of us would love to grow our business at our pace and at our own convenience over time, and fund it purely from our own owner's equity, such that we are not under pressure to either pay interest to anybody or to feel under pressure to repay any debt obligation over time. But then we don't do business in a perfect world. And unfortunately, because of the competitive and fast-paced world in which we exist today, sorry, can we all be muted, please? Thank you. So in today's world, we're not, like I said, because typically opportunities that come up for your business today, if they're not taken up, they may disappear. Somebody else may take that opportunity. You may not even, it's not just a question of growing market share now, you may not even be able to sustain and retain your existing market share if you do not bring in the critical investment that is required for the business. And some of the things that make it imperative to take on additional capital, which may come in terms of debt, may be technological changes in your industry. So there is new technology that you must acquire. There is a need to upgrade the existing technology very fast. There may be a need to bring on, put more boots, so to speak, on the ground. There may be a need to hire more people, or there may be a need to hire people at a particular, with a particular level of skills that you are not able from your existing capital, you're not able to meet those obligations, and that you know that are critical to the survival and to the growth of the business. So there will always be reasons to justify taking on debt. What I will say that you don't, under no circumstance, you should take on debt for is you mustn't take on debt just to pay bills that have already accrued over time, and that are not by paying those bills off, you cannot see any difference that will be made in terms of future revenues. So where you cannot associate the borrowing to the generation of future revenues, you may want to think about other things to do. And I'm not saying you should not pay your bills. I'm saying that if you are using the fresh funds just to clear old obligations, which obligations cannot in any way, you can't see any way in which this new debt is going to create additional revenues for you, is going to help you, you can't link it to how you're going to repay this debt, either the principal or the interest obligations, then you need to think about other options including raising additional equity, yes, with the attendant implication that you are possibly diluting your interest. Another option would be simply selling off assets. The assets may be, disused assets that are not being optimized, but you just have to, tie every additional debt you are taking on. Ideally, you should tie it to the future growth of the business and expected growth in revenues. So those are some preliminary things that I wanted to put on the table. I don't want to speak for too long because I know that there are already many questions that are on the ground. So I'm just going to go straight into the questions that I have here and answer them, and then try and move as fast as possible so that we can actually take on questions live here. Thank you. So some of the questions that were sent in advance. The first one I have here is, what are the available channels for sourcing cost-efficient debt for business expansion? And my response is that multiple channels exist for sourcing cost-efficient debt for business expansion. The most obvious, and usually the one that people resort to at the initial stage, is friends and family. Friends and family will give you soft loans. Most of the time, these loans will be either free of interest or at low interest rates, and the tenors will also be flexible. I mean, I had, one or two people at the beginning of my business that said to me, I'm going to give you this amount in capital, go and use it. When you are ready and you have, achieved your goals, pay me back. In other words, some of these facilities can be payable when able. Although I will tell you that I didn't take it up, and I had my reasons for not taking it up, but friends and family will give you facilities that can be payable when able. The terms are soft and with little or no interest. So if you have it, please take it. Second is grants. There are grants giving agencies. Some of them there are also accelerator businesses, accelerators that can support you, angel investors that can support you. And some of the grants giving agencies will give you direct loans. Some will give you loans specifically for technical assistance, which is one of the things that you need in the early stage of your business. Now, of course, bank loans are there as well. And I always encourage anybody who is in business, from day one of running your business, no matter how small your business is, please have a bank account in the name of that business, whether it's a partnership, a sole proprietorship, or a limited liability entity, or, obviously if it's a PLC, you know what to do. So you have a bank account that is well operated, bank all income, and let all expenditure for the business also come out of the business's account. Don't expend and claim it back. let the business pay its expenses. If you are investing in your business, put it in as capital or as a loan to the business, document it properly, let it go into the bank account of the business, and when you need to spend, spend from there. So if you are maintaining, a good and well-operated bank account, it puts you in a stronger position to access bank loans. So you can always access bank loans. You can access loans from development finance institutions. In Nigeria, we have the Bank of Industry, we have the Agricultural Bank, we have the Development Bank, we have various agencies, Nexim, then there's Afro-Exim, which is for Africa Development Bank. So there are always development finance institutions. We at Emerging Africa are very happy to help you. And we have packaged loans successfully for our clients from these kind of agencies. Obviously, as your business grows, you can get to the stage where you can issue a commercial paper. These are usually short-term instruments to raise capital from the public through an advisor. Again, these are the kind of services we render as an investment bank. So usually they're 180 days, maximum 270 days. And you can establish a program and essentially take this money and roll it over and keep getting, new ones, new CPs, as long as, the old ones are paid off as at when due. And you can also have a consortium of financial institutions give you a consortium loan or a syndicated loan. Again, these are stuff that we arrange. For businesses that have established financial track records, that have established governance, that were able to get a successful credit rating for them, then we can have a private bond. And obviously, when they become a public company, they can also raise a public bond. Now, we also have venture capital and PE entities that provide funding. Typically, they provide equity. So because we're talking about debt, typically they provide equity, but some of them also, for the entities that they provide equity for, usually for the entities they provide equity for, they're also able to do some debt. But seldom will they, do debt alone without any equity attachment or equity interest in that entity. So those are some of the channels that exist for sourcing. Now, when you say cost efficient debt, obviously pricing will vary from entity to entity, from type of investments, from type of investor to investor. But you'll see what I tried to do was to list them in order of how cheap it's likely to come. So the cheapest will probably be from the friends and family and the grants, and assistance, bank loans, and then, or maybe the DFIs first before the bank loans. And so it will vary depending on which entity you're dealing with or which type of entity you're dealing with. Now, the next question I have here is what should be most important? What should be the most important approach to loans? Now, I think that anybody who is approaching the possibility of raising a loan should approach with the highest sense of responsibility and a total commitment to repay. You should be cautious, definitely not reckless. You should not take a facility just because it's on offer. And again, I'll give the example I gave earlier. To be specific, when we were setting up at Emerging Africa Group, we had our capital requirements from our regulators for all the businesses within the group. The total was 870 million. And I had a single investor who had, worked with me and seen, what I was, in his view, what I was capable of until when I retired as Group CEO of United Capital PLC. And he said, whatever you do, I'll put money in. And by the way, you need 870 million for your licenses. I assume you will need a little more to operate. So I will give you 1 billion. Pay it when you are ready, when you think your business can take it out. It was very tempting, but I said no. And the reason why I said no was because I felt that if I took that facility, I retired because I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I wanted to do all the things I had done before as an employee CEO. I wanted to do them as an entrepreneur. And I felt like if I took this money, I had become an employee again. because essentially I was running on somebody else's money to be repaid, when able. So I said to my investor, what proportion of this 1 billion would you be willing to put down as equity, pure equity? Meaning, if we make a loss, we make a loss. If we make a profit, we make a profit. You won't come after me. I won't feel like I'm owing you money. And it turned out it was just 220 million. So that's what we took. And we found other, investors who believed in us, and we pulled all the investments together and started. So you must approach debt with responsibility and a total recognition that no matter how nice and how simple it sounds, it is something you must pay back or your reputation is gone. You must also approach debt in a calculated and a respectful way, respectful of what exactly it means to owe. You must take debt with consciousness of the need for realistic cost and a realistic tenor. So even though I have said earlier that debt is cheaper than equity, however, ability to pay, liquidity to pay as at when due is a differentiator between what you take as debt and having equity in the business. You have a clear obligation to pay at a particular time. So when you are taking the debt, you must make sure that the price at which the debt is offered is reasonable and realistic compared to the revenues you are going to get from your investment. And you must also make sure that the tenor is reasonable and realistic for you to pay back. So, and very importantly, you must take on loans for either investments or critical investment, like I said, in capital expenditure, acquisition of a new asset, expansion, or critical working capital. Debt must be appropriately priced and ideally should be matched. The pricing must be matched against the returns that you are expecting from your investments. The tenor must be matched to future cash flows. If one of the phrases that is very common, and I've heard clients come and say, look, you can organize a bridge finance for me, just give me a bridge finance. I just need a bridge for 12 months, 9 months, 6 months. And I always say that when you get on Third Mainland Bridge, at this end, you are coming from somewhere. At the other end, you are going to land somewhere. You don't get to a point, any bridge that you get to a point where and you look and there is nothing joined to that bridge, nothing standing for you, you are falling out of the sky. That's not a bridge. It's, I don't know what it is. It's a suicide track or something. So sometimes you find people using the phrase bridge finance, but when you analyze it, you realize that when you say, what am I bridging? It may be another debt that they're not even sure that they're going to get. So if there's no certainty around the long-term, what is standing at the end of that bridge, if there's no certainty around it, then I would say you should beware. So the third question I have here was, so the point I was making there is that your bridge must land somewhere. It cannot be just to roll over into a perpetual debt. So you find out you have people layering debt upon debt. So by the time this one is out, they would have taken another one to take out this one. By the time that one is out, they would have taken another one, and you can't even see where they're going with all this. That is not recommended. The third question I have is, I was heavily indebted to a bank in my startup business due to lack of expertise in the industry. How do I renegotiate? And the first thing I would say to such a person is get a financial advisor. The financial advisor will advise you on how you can restructure these existing debts, either with, directly through the same party, or perhaps arrange refinancing for you, but this time around, look for better terms, both in terms of longer tenor, cheaper rates. If the original one was in foreign exchange, then you want to look for how you can possibly make sure going forward your obligations are matched to the currency of your earnings. And of course, you negotiate with this bank And like I said, it's better sometimes to have an expert who is negotiating on your behalf with the banks. They're more likely to take you seriously, and you'll be looking for an arrangement in which predominantly your advisory fees are paid on success. So it reduces, so you're not, taking out further debt again to get advice to get out of debt. Fourth question here is, how can bad debt be bought over? So my answer is, I assume you want to refinance your debt before it gets bad, not necessarily having it bought over. If it becomes bad and it's bought over, you don't have much control, because the person who has bought your debt is usually a pharaoh that does not know Joseph, and they will resort to any and every, because they have bought it over, they have spent money, they will resort to any and every means to get the money to shake you down and get you the money out. So it's much better before it goes bad to have a conversation with your lender and restructure it, hopefully in a friendly atmosphere, or you find a way to refinance it through a third party. How do I upgrade my business to meet the standard required for getting loans from banks? So if you want to get a facility from a bank, obviously the first thing they want to see is your financial records, that they're clean, they're believable, they're sincere. There's no hanky-panky going on. Everything is as you say it is. You are not making drawings out of the business. I mean, I remember looking at the accounts of a business that on the outside, is really supposed to be a very big business, massive operation. And then we had to do some work for them. And by the time we looked into their books, we found drawings in excess of 4 billion naira. I say drawings. I mean, you can always take your dividends. You can always take your salaries. If you are the owners are also executives working in the business. I mean, you can even take your bonuses if they're in line with approved board policies. The problem is when you have, just unexplained drawings that are not tied to, any particular corporate activity. Owners are just taking money out whenever they feel like it. The problem with that is that it does not put you in a good position to access the kind of funding, stable, long-term, appropriately priced funding that you need. So you need to clean up your books, tidy up your records. So for you to do that, your books should be clean. They should be audited by respected auditors. Obviously, it's not everybody that can use the Big Four, but depending on the stage of growth of your business, the age of your business, what you're trying to accomplish, at least make sure you have a credible audit firm auditing your business on a regular basis. Governance is critical. So if all decisions are taken by you, your spouse, and your child, it might be good to set up a proper board and bring in 1 or 2 independents to show that decisions are being taken properly. And many times these board members can actually help you also with ideas and with connections. Have a track record of meeting your obligations as and when due. So if you've been treating your prior bankers, I have a product, for example, in one of our microfinance bank subsidiaries that refinances existing obligations. And usually we're happy to give longer tenor, and we actually try to give cheaper rates. But the one no for us is you must not have defaulted in your prior relationships. If we find that you have been defaulting with your former banks, we don't want you. We won't touch you. Just go your way. So you're building a reputation by how you are treating your existing financial, counterparties. So you have people that have a reputation that when they need money from you, they will be as nice as ice cream. And the minute they take the funds, you are chasing them. They won't even pick up your phone, your calls. they won't even speak to you. By the time you've been a client like that in 1-2 places, don't blame anybody if nobody wants to touch you with a barge pole. But if you have a reputation for being very responsible and responsive and open with your lenders, even when you think that, so we've had clients that they think something is going wrong and they may miss some obligations. They call us ahead and say, look, please come and see, this is what we're experiencing. You know, we wanted to tell you ahead. That's the kind of relationship that will endear you to lending organizations, or that's the kind of behavior that will endear you to lending organizations. Of course, not only do you put proper corporate governance, also ensure you have, you know, proper risk management, enterprise risk management across your business. Maybe I shouldn't go into the camel structure, some of the things I have on my notes here, but it just says, you know, capital adequacy, you must make sure you have, you know, adequate capital for the type of business you're doing, your asset quality, you're not throwing good money after bad, you're managing capacity and structure, or your management capacity and structure is the best you can get. And obviously the consistency and quality of your earnings and liquidity, those are the kind of things that banks will look at. Now, the next question is, how do I get out of debt from a business that went under? If the business has already gone under, then you need to have a post-mortem. So you need to tell yourself some truths, find out and answer the questions of why did this business go under? How did this business go under? Where did I drop the ball? Where did I miss it? Was I over optimistic? Did I borrow too much? Did I entrust the business to others without controls? Was I just, you know, playing at doing business as opposed to doing business for real? Was I wrong in my initial estimations as to what is available in this market? So do a post-mortem. When you are sure of where you went wrong, then proactively go to those whom you owe and tell them the story. There is nothing like candor. Oh, this is where we missed it because this happened and that happened and then COVID happened. Don't just put everything on COVID. The one that is COVID, say. The one that is you, say. You'll be surprised that people are more willing to forgive, to write off some of the debt, and perhaps they might even fund your future venture if they think you have been candid with them and they think you have learned your lessons. The most successful business people are actually usually people who have failed in the past and they have learned from their failure, and they're usually better in the future. So negotiate your terms of exit. Don't just abandon the debt because the business went under. Yes, the business went under, but the founder did not go under. If you abandon the debt, just move on. You are no longer there. You go to another business. The market is looking at you and they're waiting for you. And you won't like it the way, you know, everybody's going to respond to you. Obviously, tidy up the records and the accounts. Please stop digging. So there's always the argument about some of our federal government institutions that are moribund and that have not produced anything for years. Well, maybe I shouldn't say moribund, but they've not produced anything for years. And we're still maintaining the full complement of staff. We're still paying ESTA code. We're still sending people abroad for training. We're still incurring all the costs. Please don't let your business be that kind of business. It's gone under. You know already that nothing is going to happen. You can't continue to incur costs. So stop digging. And plan for your next business and plan better. Take advantage of what you have learned from this one so that you can do better in the next thing you're doing. I have a question here. How do I go into entrepreneurship with so much debt already? If you have a lot of debts already, I would recommend that you work on cleaning or restructuring the existing debt and you have a very clear plan to close out on that existing debt before you jump into another entrepreneurship initiative. And if you want to jump into another entrepreneurship initiative, another thing you need to do is don't do it alone. Find a partner that is cash rich and probably has a better reputation, because the debts that you have will have impacted your reputation. And please disclose, be very open with this partner. And perhaps it's that partner's name and face that should go ahead rather than yours, until you clear up, the old mess. Explore, structured financing options. It is possible to ring fence the cash flows from a business. So as you're going into the business, you are clear, this is where the funds are going. So even when your partner and your lenders are investing, you can allow them to pay directly into the third-party providers, and let the revenues also come into a trust account, for example. So, those are the kind of comforts you can put to show your partners that this business is completely ring-fenced from your own historical, challenges. If they can see that this business will stand alone, its cash flows will be ring-fenced and managed on its own, and it's attractive enough, and you have been honest with them, and perhaps you have also brought in other, partners, accountability partners, you may be able to start again. How can one get out of a very huge debt without having any funds? I don't think it is possible to get out of a very huge debt without having any funds, unless, of course, the debt is forgiven. I'm a member of the Redeemed Christian Church of God, and this is our season of perfect jubilee. And we believe in Redeemed, that one of the things that happens in the year of jubilee is that all debts are forgiven. So obviously you can exercise faith and believe God that the debt will be forgiven. But when you say you want to get out of the debt without having any funds, is one obviously is that you provide services, future services that are regarded as valuable enough to your creditor that they will take these services in exchange for the debt that is owed to them. So I guess that's one way in which you can pay a debt, huge or small, without having any funds. So you pay with future services that you want to render. It is possible to declare bankruptcy as a person, or for the business, of course, to declare insolvency, bankruptcy, to escape the payment of the debt. The problem with it is that nobody would want to do anything else with you in future. The permanent impairment to the goodwill of the business or the person and the sponsors involved would be really massive. Somebody asked, is it scriptural to borrow or to be in debt? I don't know whether I'm speaking as a pastor today. I'm speaking as a business person. But let me put it this way. I mean, my thoughts are that the Bible does not encourage us to be in debt for frivolous reasons as individuals. Doesn't encourage us to borrow, for lifestyle reasons. But I do not think that it is wrong for a business to access responsible debt for investment purposes and to pay it back as at when due. Technically, it's a facility, it's a loan, it's not exactly a debt, so to speak, whilst it is being serviced and it is being paid as at when due. It becomes a debt when you stop meeting the obligations. I mean, in the loose frame of it, of course, it's debt versus equity, so it's debt. It falls into the category of debt capital as opposed to equity capital. But before you can call it a debt owed to somebody, it must have fallen due, and that's when it becomes a debt. So as long as it's being serviced and it's being paid interest and principal as a when due, it is a financial obligation. It is perhaps you can call it a facility, an extension that you are using for your business. I will leave the pastors to answer the deeper spiritual questions. It is definitely wrong not to repay your debt. Psalm 37:21 says, the wicked borrows but does not pay back. So if you don't pay back, then you are definitely a wicked person. Somebody wants to learn how to access low-cost debts. So most of the government-sponsored programs, like by SMEDAN, BOI, Bank of Agriculture, through these agencies and bilateral and multilateral agencies, and some of the NGOs can provide financing at mostly single digits and on very soft terms. I think I've really answered this question earlier. Firms can also get cheaper private sector mobilized funding by putting in place better risk management, such that ultimately, because you are perceived as lower risk, and sometimes you also get what we call credit wrapping, you get essentially a guarantee from a third party that enables you to access cheaper loans. I don't want to go into more details here. Of course, in Nigeria, we have InfraCredit, we have USAID, we have the World Bank, MIGA. Those are kind of agencies that can provide credit enhancements that can lower the cost of borrowing. There was something I wanted to say. Okay. Do I really need debt to expand my business where I have the option of equity? I mean, nobody is compelled to take on debt. If you have access to equity investments and you are not worried that this equity investment would dilute your interest to the point where you lose control of your business, then by all means take the equity. You will have a greater peace of mind. What structure do I need to put in place to make debt financing optimally beneficial? Obviously, you need to negotiate favorable terms to give room for debt repayments. You need to allocate the debt funding on the project it is meant to be used for. You need to increase your sales aggressively so that you have sufficient revenues to cushion the impact of the repayment of that loan. And you need to avoid taking on further or other loans that would impair your cash flows. How can you source for funds as a startup? Options include crowdfunding for startups, private investors. I've mentioned angel investors. I've mentioned some of the startup accelerators, startup incubators, venture capital firms, and microfinance banking institutions. Are bank loans a suitable form of debt for expansion? Depending on the circumstances. Obviously, we're talking about bank loans are typically shorter tenured. The capital market, which is the market in which I operate, is the market for long-term debt capital and also equity capital. And so usually more suited for long-term business expansion. And this can include equity capital raise, debt capital raise, private debt, public debt, like I've mentioned earlier. When do you consider debt as a good debt? Debt is good if it is deployed to initiatives that will generate cash flows that will grow your business, will be sufficient enough for the repayment of the debt and also to put reasonable profit on the table, and will also contribute towards wealth maximization of the business sponsors. So it must yield residual benefits beyond the repayment obligations to help to build your business over time. How do I get out of debt from a business that went on? Oh, it looks like I'm repeating some earlier questions. I have a question here. How should early stage small and medium-sized businesses approach the capital market to raise short to medium-term funding? So, of course, I will always advise that you get an advisor, you get an issuing house, you get partners that would help you raise this funding. You can access low interest development funding through one of the DFIs. You can raise asset-backed financing. You can have crowdfunding to raise debt. You can also have private placements for either debt or equity. You can have government-backed loans. I think because of time, this may be a good time to pause and take questions directly from participants that are with us in the room. Are there any such questions? Do you want to put them in the Q&A segment?
Thank you very much, Mrs. Tony. So if anyone has questions they would like to take, they would like to ask, could you signify by raise of your hands digitally, and then I'll call you out while you ask your question of the speaker. I want to see hands raised. Okay, Emmanuel Ebuno, yes, please ask your question.
Emmanuel,
Hello,
can you unmute yourself and ask your question?
Okay, good evening, Ma, and everyone on this platform. I've been really waiting for this opportunity. I was privileged to meet with the speaker tonight in our office, and I've been blessed by her, so I've been expecting to be part of this meeting. Ma, I was once, I went into business as a pastor, and that was since 2019. That was my first time of venture 5 years. Due to inexperience, the business went down completely because I wasn't an expert in that field. Now, I incurred debt, and the debt repaying back has been a kind of, it has been very, very, very hectic on me. Now I enter into agency banking. That one is paying small. But the other major contract I had that was a failed project that got me into debt. That was my first time of getting loan from bank. And now the agency banking, the money coming from the agency banking is not enough to sort out the other previous debt. So how do I go about it? It's actually a legal, a financial expert. I need a practical way of going about this coming out of this debt. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Emmanuel. Thank you very much for sharing. Are you, so what I would say is, obviously the debt is owed to an institution. So you need to have a meeting with that institution, and you need to discuss how much is left in your records with them, how much you are able to pay back. And the reason why I asked you to get an advisor is very simple. If you're doing a new business now, you're paying them from the new business. If they're compounding interest on that debt, you will work for the rest of your life and you will still be paying them. If they're not going to stop, maybe freeze the interest at a stage, freeze the principal at a point, understand circumstances and look at what they can take out of it. So the advantage of having an advisor is that the advisor will look at the statement of accounts with them and essentially tell you what you might even find out that, even the way they are computing it, they are overcharging you. Your advisor may find out that there are some charges that they are charging that they're not allowed at law to charge. There are laws concerning compound interest in Nigeria, for example. Those are the kind of things that they can help you to then, take a meeting with the bank and discuss and get them to take out some of these, freeze and stop applying interest, cut off, some of the amounts, and then you now have an arrangement to pay the balance. Those are the kind of things that, practical things I'm talking about. And obviously, you should also keep looking for new things to do, how to scale your new business to grow such that hopefully it can generate enough to pay what is in the past and to give you a future. I don't know whether I have attempted better.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm fine now.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Emmanuel, please feel free to lower your hand now. We have Audio Yole. So please ask your question now. Once your questions are answered, please lower your hand so that we can go in sequential order. Thank you very much.
Good evening, sir. Good evening, ma. Good evening, everybody. My name is Audio Yole. I have a question. What's the ideal percentage one should give out when dealing with equity, assuming you're raising funds for your business using equity? I mean, we've heard stories of Mark Zuckerberg giving out ordinary shares. So what happened to Steve Jobs, like the board pushing him out of the company because they had a controlling share, a majority share. So we heard that Mark Zuckerberg's shares, what he gave to investors are ordinary shares, and such powers cannot happen to him at Facebook. So I'm asking, what's the ideal percentage in equity that one should give out, especially when you're raising and the kind of investors you're raising from? They might be, in quotes, sharks per se, and always looking to take advantage.
Okay, it's a good question. Okay, so there is no ideal percentage. It will depend on what you want to accomplish, but I will help you by sharing my own story. So when we started, like I said, I made up my mind that I didn't want to be an employee. I wanted to be, I didn't want to be an employee. I wanted to be an entrepreneur. And I wanted to have majority control over my business. Now, the funds that I had were just about 25% of the capital that I needed. And yet, for me to have control, I needed to own 51%, or at least anything above 50%, because I'm the one that has the vision. I'm the one that has my strategy. I'm the one that know what I want to accomplish, and I don't want to be kicked out. So what I did was the initial invitations to investors to invite, I let them know that I required 2 more years to buy up to 51%. I let them know from day one that I was reserving 51%, the right to own 51% in the business to the original founders of the business, and that in the shareholders agreement we signed, I would be given up to 24 months to essentially invest up to over 50%. The good news was that I gave people an option to invest from 5%, 10% upward. So everybody indicated how much they wanted to invest. Some people just put a naira amount. Some other people said, I want to own 10%. The understanding in the shareholders agreement was anybody that stipulated the percentage that they wanted to own, given the 22 months to process. So it was a big And the remaining people who did not indicate any particular percentage, since all they were interested in was the Naira quantum of their investment, they didn't lose anything. So we closed that window, indeed, after the 24 months. And by that time, I had grown sufficient liquidity, mostly from the profits within the business, to be able to take up that shareholding. And so all is well that ends well. So what I'm saying is, if your concern is control over your business, then you and whoever you trust, your immediate partners or family or whatever, you want to retain at least a little bit above 50%, 50.5, 50.25, whatever, so that you have a majority voting right. If you don't do that, then the people that buy from you they can Steve Jobs you. Let me put it like that.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Okay, thank you very much for that insightful response, and thank you very much for your question, sir. Odio Yuli. Any other questions in the house? Because we have just about 13 minutes before we round up. Are there any other persons who would like to have their questions answered immediately? Can you say?
While we're waiting, I can help to answer. There's a particular question that was in the original questions that could be of interest to those who are in the room, and I can answer that whilst we wait. And then if there's no further question, I'll take it that is it.
Yes, ma'am.
The question was number 20 of the original questions. What's the preferred way to fund a business that is largely affected by Forex fluctuations? Because we are facing that, the problem that all of us are facing in Nigeria now with the high volatility of the currency. So my answers were, number one way is to get funding, preferably equity over debt in foreign currencies. So if you raise equity in foreign currency, and since equity doesn't need to be repaid back, this would take care of the currency needs. So I'm assuming that you have inputs, in foreign currency, and that's why currency has affected your business. So it will eliminate the risk of conversion of Forex to Naira. And with equity capital in Forex, there is no debt repayment burden, only the payment of dividend. The only thing you need to remember, though, is that because of the relative depreciation in value of the Naira, that equity participation in currency will amount to a huge amount of Naira. And so the risk of the erosion is there of your own rights, of your own stake. Number two, or dilution of your stake. Number two, the ideal way is to seek to earn revenues in foreign exchange. So e.g. by exporting your products where possible, you want to start earning revenues in foreign exchange to cushion the impact of the currency fluctuation on your business. And the third thing is you seek substitution of your imported inputs. Whatever it is you are importing that is part of the critical inputs to your business, you must look for ways in which you can substitute them with local inputs where possible, or pivot your business to a business that is less dependent on importing foreign components. I don't know if there's any other question.
Yes, ma'am. Based on the list, I remember that you had answered number 11. Your question number 12 was, what structure do I need to put in place to make debt financing optimally beneficial?
I actually answered that question before. Okay. That was when I said that perhaps I was repeating questions. Okay, I had said negotiate favorable terms to give room for debt repayment.
Exactly.
I said allocate the debt funding on the project it is meant to be used for. Increase sales aggressively. Avoid taking up further loans. And then I had said something else, still about structure. I think that was when I talked about your governance structure as well. That was when I talked about making sure you're structured in a way that you can attract good ratings. I think so.
Thank you very much. Please, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Those of us who have been here, how do we even get on the subject of ratings? How does, imagine a startup who wants to.
I'm not hearing you well at all.
Oh, okay. Please, ma'am, I'm asking now, now that you said we may want to attract good ratings, so could you
Okay.
deep dive a bit
Okay.
into that for those of us who want to understand?
Okay. So for a business, for example, to raise commercial paper from the public, which will usually be through an instrument registered with the FMDQ as either a private, in fact, for commercial paper, just registered as a commercial paper issuance, you would need to be rated by a credit agency, licensed credit agency, SEC licensed credit agency. And that credit agency, for them to rate you, they will look at your governance structure. They would look at, so in terms of, your board constitution, in terms of, the operations of that board, in terms of your risk management and compliance practices, in terms of the board committees that you have and whether they're meeting as a when due, in terms of your financial track records, in terms of the quality of assets that you have in the company, in terms of your capital adequacy for the nature of your business, in terms of your liquidity lines, in terms of any credit you have taken in the past and how you managed it. They will be very interested in, obviously, the profitability of your business, the sustained profitability of your business, and the risks that you are taking on to be that profitable. They would need to know and understand. They will look at your management, the quality of your management in terms of experience and capability. They would look at the quality of your counterparties as well. The people you are trading with, the people that you owe, the people who owe you, the people whom you are giving credits to, the people who you are buying from, the people whom you are selling to because they are owing you. They will look at them also, their own governance and their own track record, of payments. Then
because they're the determinants of the liquidity of your business. If all your customers owe you,
everything.
You can't.
They want to look at your liquidity, your profitability. They want to look at your risk management. They want to look at the quality of your assets, the quality of your management, the quality of your board. They want to look at, how you have behaved in the past. Do you have cases in court? They want to look at, do you have cases in court? What are the likelihood that you will lose or win those cases? They want to look at what kind of disputes you've had before. They want to look at the history of internal fraud within your organization. They want to look at your whistleblowing policies and practices, whether they are in place. They want to look at the public reputation of your business. What's the public perception? So when they review all that, they will ascribe a credit rating to your organization. And that credit rating, obviously,